Good morning. So, today I am doing something that I have never done before in terms of me recording a YouTube video, which is doing a video before I go to school and go to work, which is what I'm doing right now. And that I am gonna quickly do the review for the midweek games before I go to school and work, and that when I come back from school and work, I'm going to be doing the preview for the weekend action that is going to be happening on MLS Matchweek number 27. And in terms of the midweek games, I think if you have one word to describe what happened in terms of these four games, I would say it's missed opportunity. Because it's hard to believe, but coming into the week where we saw how tight the Western Conference is, after we finish this week, the Western Conference is still very tight, and that the teams that were coming into this week where they were in the Western Conference kind of was unchanged after the week that we finished, and that in many ways, out of all those teams that is in the playoff race in the Western Conference, only one team was able to get a win and able to propel themselves all the way up into second place of the Western Conference, and I will tell you which team that is. But first of all, let us talk about the only Eastern Conference clash out of these four games, which was between NYCFC and Toronto FC, which that game ended in a 1-1 draw. And in the 6th minute, Matrita, of course, scores on a great free kick to give NYCFC a 1-0 lead. You could kind of question in terms of the wall that TFC put in that, and I thought, the wall wasn't really put in a very good place, where I feel like Matrita knew that all he had to do was kind of just hit that one kind of on the right side of the wall and kind of just bend it over the right side of the wall, and that he will basically put that ball into the back of the net, which is exactly what happened in that instant. But still, take nothing away in terms of that free kick. It was an amazing free kick from Matrita, but TFC did find a way to get an equalizer, and in the 40th minute they got the equalizer after Pozuelo scores on a penalty. And this penalty happened because one of the NYCFC defenders decided that he's going to have all his hands on the jersey of Josie Altidore and basically pulled him down in the box. I know some NYCFC fans are going to be mad about that call, but at the end of the day, it is a penalty. Like, anytime when you get your hands on somebody's jersey and pull him down either in the box or not in the box, it is obviously going to be a foul. So, good call on the referee in terms of that situation and call a penalty. And like I said, Pozuelo was able to put that one away, and the game is all tied at 1 apiece. Now, in the second half, there was another VAR or another penalty that was awarded to TFC, and they actually go to VAR to look at this because originally they did not call this a penalty. And when they look at VAR, they award a penalty for TFC because there was a handball against NYCFC and a handball against Ben Sweat. And what happened in this sequence of play was when the ball was delivered in by Endo, it looked like Ben Sweat was trying to block this low cross, and that as that ball kind of hits his chest as he was sliding down, it basically popped up right back into his hand. Now, we have seen before that of course has been called a penalty, and it has been called sometime not a penalty. But one thing that I think the reason why it was called a penalty in this instant is that his hands was in an unnatural position. And anytime, it doesn't matter if the ball hits straight into your hand in an unnatural position or it ricocheted off of your body, if your hands is in an unnatural position and the ball hits your hand, then yeah, that is going to be a handball in the box. And that, I definitely agree with the fact that VAR did the right thing by reversing that call and give a penalty to TFC. But unfortunately for TFC, they weren't able to take advantage, as unlike in the first half, Pozuelo was able to put away his penalty. His second penalty was saved by Sean Johnson. And despite the fact that TFC had some chances to potentially get a winner. They weren't able to do that, and the game ends in a 1-1 stalemate. Now, in terms of shots in this game, TFC had 15 shots compared to 10 that NYCFC had. 5 shots on goal compared to 1 that NYCFC had. 9 shots off target compared to 7 that NYCFC had. 1 shot that was blocked compared to 2 that NYCFC had. And possession-wise, 44% possession compared to 58% possession that NYCFC had. And while, for TFC, you could say that this is a good point for them to get because, they were able to go to Yankee Stadium, which is a place that is incredibly hard to try and get a point or even get all 3 points out of. And they, of course, got a point out of this game. But something tells me this is going to be like one of those games where, yes, Toronto got a point out of it, but there's definitely going to be some guilt and some disappointment, the fact that they weren't able to get all 3 points because of the missed opportunity that they had during the game. And the missed opportunity is obviously the chances that they had in this game and the penalty in the second half, which was saved by Sean Johnson. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it's a good point, but at the same time, it's frustrated the fact that they could have got all 3. And this is also tells me that the verdict is still on in terms of them whether or not if they would actually make a deep playoff run. I mean, this point definitely helps them in terms of making the playoffs, but once they get to the playoffs, the verdict is still on whether or not if they, of course, can make a playoff run or not. And as for NYCFC, we knew that this was eventually going to happen where, in the last couple of home wins, yes, they, of course, were able to get those wins, but it was a grind-out kind of victory where they had to rely on late goals to be able to get all 3 points. And eventually, that kind of way to win games is not going to work, and it's going to caught up to you. And in this game, that was exactly the case where NYCFC wasn't able to find a late winner to get all 3 points in this game. But moving on into the next match is Minnesota. Boy, this was a huge L for Minnesota as they lose 2-0 to Houston on the road. And I know this game is on the road for Minnesota, and the Loons historically in their history in MLS has not been a good road team. But considering the fact that you are playing one of the worst team in the Western Conference and a team that has been just struggling so much in these last couple of months, the fact that you walk out with nothing and you lost this game against them, yeah, that is a very big L. And to make matters worse, remember that guy that you let him go a couple of years ago that was a fan favorite and was so beloved in terms of the Loons fan base, known as Christian Ramirez? Yeah, he scored against you in this game. And before that, in the first half, Manotas scores from DeMarcus Beasley to give Houston a 1-0 lead. And when I saw that goal, I kind of was just checking myself to make sure that I did not just saw that in 2019 and that this is clearly not 2005 or 2006 or something like that, because that is something that I seen about 14 years ago where Beasley was able to bomb forward on the left flank and able to basically put the ball into the box for one of his teammate to easily tap it home. And that is exactly what happened in this instant where, again, I seen that before when he was in his prime, but recently I haven't really seen that happen because as he gets older, he hasn't really quite do that. But this was one of the few times that he, of course, did that, which is why I had to really check myself to make sure this is 2019 and not 2005. Then 7 minutes later, there is Christian Ramirez scoring against his old team for Manotas to give Houston a 2-0 lead. And it's important that I also wrote celebrate against his old team because he did celebrate against his old team. And I don't know exactly I haven't heard any opinion on Loons fans in terms of what they thought of Christian Ramirez decided to celebrate against his old team, and that do you think is a little bit disrespectful considering the fact that, Minnesota was the team that really made what Christian Ramirez is right now and that he spent most of his career and even started his career in Minnesota. So yeah, that was kind of a little bit interesting. I mean, I guess maybe the reason why he decides to celebrate against his old team is that he's probably not happy with what happened a couple of years ago when they just simply let him go. And let him go to LAFC even though he didn't want to go there, and that this goal of him, of course, celebrating is just a pretty big middle finger to the Minnesota front office and say, yeah, you should have never sold me in the first place, and now I'm going to haunt you back by scoring a goal against you. Now, in the second half, Minnesota had chances to score a couple of goals and get back into this game, but they couldn't quite find one, and that, of course, is the final score of this game, as Houston was able to win 2-0 in this one. And in terms of the shots in this game, Minnesota had 12 shots compared to 7 that the Dynamo has. 5 shots on goal compared to 4 that Houston has. Both teams had 1 shot off target, 2 shots that was blocked compared to 6 that Minnesota has. And possession-wise, 54% possession compared to 46% possession that Minnesota has. And, for Houston, it's a good win for them, although I'm pretty sure it's too late in terms of them potentially making the playoffs this season. I mean, they still have a lot of points to make up and just very few games left in the season that they can, of course, make up that deficit so that they can be in the playoff conversation. And as for Minnesota, again, it's a huge L that they suffer in this game, not only because one of your former players score against you, but you just lost to probably the easiest team you get to face for the remaining of the season. And now if they want to make sure that they, of course, make the playoffs, they have to go through this very brutal stretch where they are going to be playing some very tough opponent. And that starts next week when they, of course, are playing at home against RSL, a team that is currently second in the Western Conference. But moving on into the next match is going to be Colorado. So the Rapids, of course, they won 2-1 against the Galaxy. But I think this is the first time I will ever say this in a match week review. But I feel like the Galaxy was hard done in this game. And that Galaxy fan has every right in terms of being very angry about this game. And that in many ways, the Galaxy got robbed in this game. And this is coming from a rival fan and coming from a guy that hates the Galaxy with all my might, and that I feel like they just got completely robbed in this game because of some of the most incompetent call that I have seen the referee made in this game from the entire season that I've watched in MLS. I mean, some of the calls in this game, it just makes me kind of be angry once again with the referee organization here in MLS in Pro, and that it just makes me want to make another video like what I did last year, where I'm gonna once again criticize Pro in terms of what they have been doing, and that there just doesn't seem like there hasn't been anything change in terms of what they have done. And you can maybe even argue it's been worse with the way that we have seen many times, like this game, where there is a call that is absolutely gracious, but it was called that way, so now one of the team, of course, would suffer that call, and that they weren't able to get a victory. And especially now we're into the latter part of the season, and that this loss that the Galaxy had could really cost them in terms of their playoff race, and that at the end of the year, I really hope if the Galaxy doesn't make the playoffs by maybe a point or two, this will not be the game that they'll look back, and this will be the one that they say that, we lost this one because the referee basically cost us, and that the referee was pretty much the reason why we did not make the playoffs. But in terms of talking about this game, and really I want to just skip forward to the second half, because in the first half, well, yes, there was a couple of chances for both of these teams to score. I want to get straight to the second half, because that's where the main talking point is going to be in this game, and that for the last 11 minutes of this game and for the last 13 minutes of stoppage time that we had, yes, you heard it right, there was 13 minutes of stoppage time in this game, things got really, really crazy. But in the 79th minute, Bassett scores from Jack Price to give the Rapids a 1-0 lead off of a free kick, because, the Rapids are free kick kings in in MLS, or should I say set piece kings in terms of MLS, by scoring the most set piece in MLS right now. So it's not a surprise that they score a goal from a set piece. But the Galaxy did waste no time to get the equalizer, and they would score on their own set piece when Gonzalez scores his first ever MLS goal off of a corner that was delivered from Christian Pavone. So the game, of course, is tied up at 1 apiece. And as we head into the 85th minute, this is where the controversy began. So Mosqueda, of course, puts away a penalty to give the Rapids a 2-1 lead. But the question is, was that actually a penalty in the first place? And the answer to that question is absolutely not. So what happened in this instant was that as Shinishiki was driving the ball in the box, it looked like not only it looked like he made a dive when he was driving into the box and just basically fall on the ground like a sack of potato, but there is no doubt that it was clear that he basically the dive, and that I think maybe the only thing that I will say maybe it could have been a penalty is that it looked like Quilo actually got a hand on Shinishiki before he of course went down on the ground, and maybe that contact is the reason why Shinishiki went down on the ground. But I think the argument to that is that literally 1 second later, before when Quilo basically, or after when Quilo basically put a hand on Shinishiki, and that Shinishiki himself kind of shove off that kind of initial contact that Quilo has, that's when, of course, he went on the ground. And that this is not the first time we've seen where players, it looked like they were about to went down on the ground because of slight contact in the box, and that they did it 1 second later and went down on their own power. Although this one was just the most obvious one. The fact that he clearly just went down on the ground way too easily with no contact whatsoever, and that yet the referee still says it's a penalty, and yet somehow in some way this did not go look and gets checked by VAR. And I'm not going to get too much into the fact that why in the world this is not getting checked by VAR, because we've seen it before this season, and we really seen it ever since the implement of VAR in MLS, where it's just so inconsistent in terms of what is being called to be checked on VAR and what is not being called, and it was checked in VAR. And that is one of the biggest issue we have with VAR right now, and probably maybe the biggest issue so far, and probably one of the reasons why a lot of people are against VAR in terms of that. But they didn't check it, which was absolutely ridiculous, and they of course awarded the penalty, which Mosqueda was able to put away. Then in the 95th minute, there was another call that went against the Galaxy, where originally it was a red card shown on Christian Pavone after when the Rapids was trying to kill the clock out, and they were basically putting the ball near the corner flag. Pavone basically kicked at one of the Rapids player, and originally it looked like it was clearly a red card with the way that he did it. But when I look on the replay and look at VAR, it looked like Pavone was trying to attempt to clear the ball away, and that he was in many ways he didn't mean to try to kick one of the Rapids player, and apparently the referee saw that and said that, you know what, instead of me giving a red card to you, I'll just give you a yellow card. And I think out of the controversial play that we had in the latter part of this game, this one probably is the least controversial, and maybe is the one that is correct, with the fact that Pavone should have never been sent off in this, because at least he made an attempt in terms of playing the ball, and that, yes, it was very, very bad from him to just kind of kick the ball and accidentally kick at one of the Rapids player. That you could argue maybe that's a dangerous play that's worth your red card, but as long as if you of course at least attempt to play the ball, or in this case attempt to try to clear the ball as the Rapids was trying to kill the clock from the corner flag, then I think it's a yellow card in that instant. But the controversy doesn't stop there, because in the 98th minute we had another call that was look at VAR. And what happened in this incident was that they looked at at VAR because when the ball was coming into the box, Ralph Felcher had a free header, and as he was diving down to trying to head that one away, at the same time, Danny Wilson was looking to try to clear the ball away, and he kind of stick his boot very high in terms of trying to clear the ball, and that he wasn't able to clear the ball, and Felcher was able to get a head toward the ball, but at the same time, Wilson basically just kind of high boot him in the head, and yet somehow in some way it wasn't called a penalty. Now, when I look on the replay, I would think at least that should be a penalty, because any time when you have a defender trying to go for the ball and that a player trying to kind of dive in to get a header, as a defender, you got to make sure you are able to get there first, because if you do not get there first, and if that attacker is able to head that ball away, and that you of course somehow can connect your boot onto the defender as you were trying to clear the ball, like in this instant with Danny Wilson, then yeah, that is going to be a penalty. But yet, as much as I thought clearly that should have been a penalty and the Galaxy would have had a chance to equalize late in the game, once again, it was the incompetence in terms of the referee in this game strikes again, and that the referee didn't call it a penalty. They didn't even give a red card in terms of this incident, despite the fact that it was clearly a reckless play of Danny Wilson decided to kind of hype boot Felcher in this instant. And yeah, at the end of the day, that of course pissed off a lot of Galaxy fan, and then at the end of the day, the result stands at 2-1 with the Rapids, of course, winning this game. And in terms of the shots in this game, 19 shots compared to 13 that the Galaxy had, 12 shots on goal compared to 7 that the Galaxy had, 4 shots off target for both of these teams, 3 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that the Galaxy had, and possession-wise, 59% or 54% possession compared to 46% possession that the Galaxy had. But at the end of the day, everybody's going to be talking about what happened with these free calls in the last 14 minutes. And again, I really felt bad for the Galaxy in terms of the fact that I thought they got absolutely robbed in this instant, and that clearly they should have not lost this game, and that at least they should have earned a draw in this one. And, as I said before, I hope that, at the end of the season, if the Galaxy does miss the playoff by 1 point, this will not be the game that they look back and say that the reason why we didn't make the playoffs is because the referee basically screwed us over. So, yeah, it's very unfortunate. I mean, I don't really have anything to say other than the fact that we've seen this happen time and time again in MLS, and that it is pretty clear that pros got to do something in terms of trying to change this. I mean, I said this last year and nothing has happened, but I'm just going to continue to say it until something is going to happen. Because as long as you're going to continue to have these kind of incidents, MLS will never be a league that is going to get a lot of respect, and that it's going to be looked upon in a league where, yes, you have a lot of talented players, and it's a very upcoming league, but your referee is absolutely garbage and can really affect the result of the game. So I am not going to watch it because, at the end of the day, it's just the referee are just bad and kind of in some way kind of corrupt in terms of deciding who of course wins the game and who didn't. Now, moving on into the final game of this week, as I spent a lot of time talking about this game because of the controversial call. One game that did not have controversy is the RSL versus Quakes game. Well, actually, this game actually did have maybe a little bit controversy in around the 83rd minute when basically it looked like RSL should have been down to 10 men. It looks like Nick Rimaldo should have been sent off in this instant, where he basically come out of his box, and that there was kind of a miscommunication there from Rimaldo and one of his defender, and they basically just kind of collide to each other, and as they collide to each other, it looked like Rimaldo basically handballed it from outside of the box, and therefore he of course should have been sent off. Now, they didn't go to VAR in terms of that instant, and that, like this game between the Rapids and the Galaxy, I feel like they should have gone to VAR in terms of that instant, because it's close enough where, I look at it a couple times of the replay, and I think maybe it's not going to be divided enough that they, of course, would overturn the call. But at least just look at it at VAR and at least look to see whether or not if they actually made a clear and obvious mistake. But the fact that they didn't do that is just another example of why VAR is not used correctly. And it's not the first time that the Quakes have been suffering this kind of fate. In fact, these last couple of games, and really these last month for the Quakes in terms of some of these games that they've been playing, they have got a lot of referee decision call against them, and it's at some point that it has really cost us some of these games and makes me very, very frustrated, even more frustrated with the pro referee organization, as if I wasn't frustrated enough. But in terms of this one overall, RSL, of course, getting the big 1-0 victory, and that in the first half, both teams had chances to score the first goal, and that in many ways I think this game kind of reminds me a little bit of the last matchup when the Quakes play against RSL at Avaya Stadium, where it was not a fun game to watch, and that it was a very boring, kind of slow kind of matchup. And I said that this game was the marquee matchup of the week and that a lot of people should watch it. Well, if a lot of people actually took my advice to watch this game, I do apologize the fact that it turns out to be a very stale and boring game, because it seemed like both teams were looking to maybe just kind of play to a draw, and that since both teams are missing some key starters, it was going to be very kind of dysfunctional, and that in many ways it was kind of almost like a battle of nutrition in terms of who exactly is going to have that one brilliant moment in this game to able to get the only goal of this one. Now, in the second half, RSL started to control the game while the Quakes started to look tired as the game went on, which is not a big surprise because we saw this happen against Colorado, where the Quakes in the second half, they looked like they were just absolutely gassed because of the altitude. And again, because this game is played at altitude, it's the same thing happened, and it's basically deja vu all over again from that Colorado game where we looked good in the first half and we had chances to score, which we weren't able to do, and then in the second half eventually we're tired out. The only difference between this one and the Colorado one is that we didn't score in this game, and that at least in the first half we didn't go down 1-0 in this game. But eventually that moment of magic from both of these teams to able to get that only goal of this game and get all 3 points happened in the 78th minute, and it was DeMar Krylak that scores from Brooks Lennon. It was a lovely cross from Brooks Lennon that Krylak was able to head it away. But you kind of also have to question Annabelle Godoy in terms of the fact that he was allowing DeMar Krylak to outjump him, and that this is another example of why, for Godoy, as much as I know he hasn't been having a bad season and that he didn't really had a bad game in this one, these are kind of moments that he's been repeatedly have with the Quakes in the last couple of seasons that he is, which is just costing us game after game, and that this kind of thing is something that I definitely have to warn Nashville fans in terms of, he might be a decent kind of players at times, but he can also have some very dumb kind of found moment, and that he could of course cost your team all 3 points like what happened in this instant. And that the only thing that kind of makes me happy in terms of this instant is that at least now that 600k that we got from Nashville seems even more like an absolute steal that we got from Annabelle Godoy. But yeah, that was the only score in this game, as in terms of shots in this game, 12 shots compared to 9 that the Quakes had, 6 shots on goal compared to 3 that the Quakes had, 5 shots off target compared to 1 that the Quakes had, 1 shot that was blocked compared to 5 that the Quakes had, and possession-wise, 56% possession compared to 44% possession that RSL had, and that, for RSL, they were able to take advantage of all the team around them were able to not get a win or not even get a draw this week, and that they of course propelled themselves all the way up into second place of the Western Conference. And as for the Quakes, you expect me to say that it's a very frustrating resort and that it's a it's a big missed opportunity for them to potentially even climb all the way up to second if they would have got a win in this game. But all I'll say about the Quakes in this game is that, they're clearly look like they are very tired, because some of the guys that we bought into this game just came back from international break, and we kind of really burnt them. And that we also are missing some of the key guys, which hopefully in the next game against NYCFC, once those key player gets back into the starting 11, this team would look a little bit much better than it was in this game. And heck, this was really the first time in a long time that they actually did not have more than 10 shots in the game. Like, every single game, the Quakes have been able to put on a shooting gallery against a team. This was one of the few games that they weren't able to do and didn't even get 10 shots in this one. But all I'll say is that, it's unfortunate that we, of course, lost this game. But now the pressure is going to continue to be on us, and that the next game against NYCFC, you would think that we have to at least get something out of them. And I know it's going to be on a short rest, and it's going to be especially on a short rest, especially the game takes place at 12:30 Eastern time and 9:30 a.m. my time. Thanks a lot, MLS, in terms of your scheduling for us to schedule the earliest MLS game of the season. But yeah, we need to at least get something out of this game, because the following one is against Atlanta United, and I have a feeling we are not going to get something out of that one. So yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it for the review of this match week. I know it was a relatively lengthy review, but I had to kind of spend a lot of time talking about the controversial call in this game and kind of feel a little bit of a guilt toward the Galaxy in terms of them just getting completely robbed of at least a point out of this game. But either way, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.